Hey everyone, what's going on? We are making it through quarantine. If you missed it, I made a little short film a couple days ago on the upsides to quarantine, so if you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, I'll put it on the link somewhere on this video. But again, here we are reviewing crypto, and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of the cryptos are all doing kind of the same thing, and they are marching higher. 4 straight weeks now of just climbing higher from that epic dump we had at the beginning of March. So just jumping into Bitcoin on the weekly, and then we'll kind of zoom in a little bit more. We have now had about 4 straight solid weeks, including this week, of upside. And we're recording this video on Wednesday, April 8th, so it's kind of in the middle of the week. We generally do them on Monday, but I was actually waiting for a break like this to happen. I think it did happen on Monday, so yeah, better to kind of go in retrospective and kind of see why we got this break on the daily. For me, the thing that was clear as day is that we had consistently had problems getting over 7,000. Last week we did have a break over 7,000, but we couldn't quite pull it off. And then basically, if you zoom into lower time frames, we formed an equilibrium after kind of breaking up over 7,000 and tightened up and got an absolutely picture-perfect daily bull break on Monday, after 3 days of kind of being stuck in the same range, really tight here. So if you pull up the 4-hour chart, it becomes a little bit more clear where it was April 2nd. We kind of hit 7,100 or almost 7,200 here, pulled back to around 6,800, and then just tighten up, and then we got this nice volume push. Great bull break, really extended, but in control for the bulls. And currently we are consolidating pretty healthy on most time frames here as well. Looking like we are kind of just forming more daily inside bars, but daily consolidation for daily higher low wouldn't be too bad at this point. And we just got a fresh daily 12 and 26 EMA cross as well. I forgot to mention him, but Matt's on the call as well. But yeah, Matt, did you have any observations about kind of the nice move we've had recently?
It looks like we're consolidating right now in a daily inside bar, very similar to the last period of consolidation. And so far, the low of today is trying to hold the top of the upper range of that April 2nd candle.
Yeah.
We are in a little bit of an ugly 4-hour equilibrium, I noticed. And from the low of the bounce, we're starting to get to where I would expect the bounce to top out. And if we look at, just had it up, if we look at the daily time frame, you can almost draw a little bit of a rising wedge on this pattern. So I would be watching for, if in a bullish position already, I would be watching for signs of reversal maybe coming. And if not in a bullish position, I certainly would not be initiating one. If I was a bear, same thing for those in bullish positions, I would be looking for signs of a potential reversal, but on any pullback, I would not be expecting a significant pullback. We'd be looking for just a healthy daily higher low, which we don't have since April 1st, down at 61.50. So there is a lot of room there, but I would be quick to take bear profits if that is the trade I was making.
Yeah. I know at one point I actually did attempt to do a short on Ethereum at about 175, and I covered that just because if you were looking on the RSI, we were just ridiculously high up here at like 87. We had a nice kind of lower high here, which you were able to kind of take as your, use that and then use 176 as your stop loss if you were shorting. I think I didn't quite cover at the bottom. I think I covered it at like 165 or something around here. But at any rate, it's kind of one of these things we've been over on this channel, that when you have the EMAs in your favor, they work very well as kind of guiding lines when you're kind of in a new price range, right? And you can kind of see once we kind of cross them back here, we've kind of marched up over them, and then when we've come to retest them, the bulls have been very good to kind of close over them and kind of use them as an area to kind of bounce off of before continuing their march higher. On this massive march higher here from April 5th, we were looking at this RSI and saying, okay, we're going to pull back, but where are we going to pull back to? Well, it turns out that the EMA 12 is another great place to look for those pullbacks and, either cover your shorts or buy for potential bounce here for a lower high. So again, love using them as tools. They are defaults in almost all of the crypto exchanges. And yeah, they'll tell you a lot about when you're breaking out where to expect your next kind of area of buying. Just keeping in mind that we really never know when it's going to pull back. We use the RSI to increase our likelihood of knowing. And I almost look at it like every candle gives you an RSI readout, and you can almost say, okay, well, maybe we can use that RSI readout as a likelihood that we're going to pull back on the next candle. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes I like to visualize, if our RSI is 87%, then maybe the likelihood that we start to pull back in the next couple hours is 87%. Don't use it as like that. That's not what they're meant for, but I kind of like to visualize that. As soon as we start getting to these insane figures, it's almost inevitable that we do get a pullback before continuing higher. Looking on the daily up to the next resistances, we obviously are in a bit of a consolidation pattern here. I wouldn't be surprised if we pull back and form a daily high or low. We kind of need one on Ethereum. It's not really clear that we have one since about 123, kind of 128 area here. But generally, we're just looking for a healthy daily high or low, and if it is really healthy, continuation from there. The next resistances I see once we get over the kind of recent highs are going to be the highs of that first little bounce from one of those dump days back in the beginning of March. So on Ethereum, that's 208.62. And then on Bitcoin, you're looking at about 8,179. Keeping in mind that we're also hitting these weekly EMA 12s, and until the week kind of ends, we don't know if those will be resistances. If we do head into daily consolidation, I think a lot of people will see those EMA 12s on the weekly as areas to kind of say, okay, time to take profit, time to let this kind of fizzle out for a few weeks and go from there. So we'll check in just to see if that is the case. What do you think, Matt? Do you think
much better follow through on that break a couple days ago for Ethereum compared to Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Similar 4-hour equilibrium, but again, this is an area where I would be starting to look for a reversal. You can't draw a wedge on Ethereum the same way you can on Bitcoin because it had such 20% is a significant bullish reaction to that breakout.
Yeah.
But we're showing signs that we may be starting to reverse, and I really like your weekly indication that we're bumping up against the EMAs as a backtest of resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just one of the things to note, I don't want to claim that I led anyone to buy the bottoms here, and there's going to be a lot of people that said, oh, look, I bought at 80 and you just doubled your money in a few weeks, and that's awesome if you caught that move. One of the reasons that I didn't quite know what to play here is because if you look at Ethereum as just the example of this, I think Bitcoin's trend was a little bit clearer. We had this nice kind of consolidation here from 360 somewhere in the middle of 2019 down to 116, and we just got weeks of bullish upside, breaking all nearby resistances on Ethereum, smacking up to 288. When you get a move like this very rarely happens, where you'll get a complete retracement of the entire move, and not only retrace the entire move, but also break the support here at 116, almost break the support going all the way back to 2018. So again, like we talked about, a lot of this has to do with margin, traders being over leveraged, selling things at extreme RSIs because they're being liquidated, right? Most traders and most people in positions wouldn't normally sell down at like 80 or 90 or whatever, but a lot of this is automated, right? Because people are being kicked out just because they're over leveraged and they have to, sell something or else they go into like negative territory on their accounts. So The problem that I have with Ethereum right now is that we've kind of entered this megaphone stage where instead of having a clear defined trend either going straight up, or kind of straight down, we're kind of doing this megaphone thing. So we hit 116, we smash through the resistances here, we're kind of up here, and then we just completely curdle and break that support, and now we're bouncing again. Look, another 100% move almost here from 80 to, 86 to 170, about 100% move there. Great volatility, but really hard to tell long term, is this something that I want to pick up based on the chart? For all intents and purposes, again, the likelihood of us going straight back through 288, very low. But we know that it's not impossible because we've seen something like this happen as well, where you go straight down through the resistances. So In terms of clear trends, I don't like Ethereum. It's something where you always have to have a leash and you always have to be kind of watching the daily time frame for your supports. Our kind of red flag was this daily equilibrium here that broke bearish, had a nice kind of retest, and then huge bear follow through. So we had an exit point if you had kind of had this run up here. But again, very unclear trend on the weekly time frames on Ethereum. It's kind of all over the place because it's being jerked around by margin traders. But yeah, just something to point out that Ethereum is stronger than Bitcoin. Something that we noted last week is that despite that crazy move, the amount that the Ethereum ratio had gained on the Bitcoin ratio was significant enough that we would be looking for a weekly high or low. Knowing the possibility that this could break, but on the recent kind of breakout here with Ethereum, we've actually kind of regained a bit of strength over Bitcoin. So it looks like the weekly high or low here is confirmed. We had a daily trend change on the ratio, which is kind of like, a daily bounce here, a daily higher low, and then a daily higher high. Great follow through here. That's a huge green candle. Volume is not notable, probably because I'm using the Bitfinex exchange. But sometimes the volume on these pairs can just be, like a single player just moving assets around. So I don't quite like the volume on a lot of the ETH to BTC pairs. So yeah, we are looking for this to top out at some point. So you can expect that if we get continuation here, that Ethereum is going to be the leader for the next few weeks or so. If Bitcoin and Ethereum do decide to go higher, Ethereum will likely still be the one that will be outperforming. I know at one point I checked in and Ethereum was the #1 performing coin on Binance, which is very rare. Never seen that really happen before. So yeah, I think that's about it. Anything else you got there, Matt?
No, I'd just like to echo that the weekly charts are fairly choppy right now, and there's no clear trend or direction on them. So what I would be doing is keeping in mind the bigger picture. And the bigger picture on every weekly time frame is we're looking for a weekly lower high. Mm-hmm. Whether that forms at 7,300 on Bitcoin or 10,000 remains to be seen. So I would be watching the daily and 4-hour trends as the most important short-term indicators, while knowing that we are going to top out on the weekly below 10,500 as the most likely scenario. Mm-hmm. And the same analysis would be for Ethereum. We're going to top out with a lower high on the weekly as the most likely scenario. So it's the daily and 4-hour trends are what I would be watching if either in a position or scouting one. And I would be just patiently waiting for more clarity on the weekly time frame, which could take a couple months from here. Based on the volatility we've seen recently.
Yeah, and I would say too, I know there's a couple people out there that have said this is Bitcoin's year, and I do think it's a very important year for Bitcoin. This break, really nobody had called for a kind of flush. If you asked anyone beginning of the year, the charts did not echo, a dump 10,500 to 3,700, but this does look like it could potentially be our bottom for at least a few months. Maybe forever, who knows. But the thing to watch for is that there are a lot of expectations on Bitcoin to be doing well going into the halving. This looks like some people saying, okay, we have our bottom, let's load up and see what the halving has in store. People who managed to catch the bottom, which I can't imagine there were a ton of, because it was a very quick bounce up to 5,000 or so over the course of a couple hours. People who did catch the bottom are now up 100%. Basically on, Bitcoin has to do maybe about 7,600. Psychologically, I do find that bounces that big, lead to some profit taking. I'll try to make it quick here, but there are things called Fibonacci retracements, and I don't use them a ton, but it is good to just see where they line up for certain levels. But Fibonacci retracements just tell you areas of potential resistance just based off of the size of a dump or a bounce from a certain area from one point to another. I'm pretty sure I'm doing these right, Matt, right? It's top to bottom for dumps.
That's right.
Cool. I had a 50% chance of getting that right. But
well, you got it.
Yeah. But, a lot of the ones that people use are when you have a big dump like this, people will use the 0.5 as an area of resistance, and that was 7140 on Bitcoin. Wouldn't say that was a clear resistance this time around, but you know, sometimes these little Fibonacci numbers give you an indication of areas that, you know, algorithms or institutional traders might take profit. It is a tool that a lot of institutional traders use to kind of tell them whether or not, you know, what the next target is, as well as things like pivots, which we will eventually go over as well. But yeah, so long story short, keep an eye out on Bitcoin potentially topping out sometime this week or next week for some daily/weekly consolidation. And same thing with Ethereum. Just look for Ethereum to hopefully outperform Bitcoin for the next couple of weeks, just due to the bull break on ETH BTC.
I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Awesome. We'll catch all you guys next week. I'm going to put out some more videos. Again, if you haven't seen that Welcome to Quarantine one, check that one out. We're going to spice things up. I might change the channel name. Might get freaky here. Quarantine does some weird things to your brain. But take it easy, guys.